This audio presentation of How I Use Truth by Emile Cady is brought to you by audioenlightenment.com. Copyright 2013. All rights reserved. Chapter 1. Why? The following is a letter written by Emile Cady to Lowell Filmore. In this letter, Dr. Cady says many helpful and inspiring things that we believe will be welcomed by those who read How I Use Truth, originally titled Miscellaneous Writings. Dear Mr. Filmore, when I sent you a few weeks ago a copy of the little pamphlet, All Sufficiency in All Things, which you said had been surreptitiously printed by an anonymous publisher, you wondered why I felt so keenly about the fact the article had been broken up, put under different headings and so forth. Let me tell you why. Almost every one of the simply written articles in Miscellaneous Writings, or How I Use Truth, was born out of the travail of my soul after I had been weeks, months, sometimes years, trying by affirmation, by claiming the promises of Jesus Christ, using all the knowledge of truth I possessed to deliver myself or others from some distressing bondage which defied all human help. One of these cases was that of my own father, who, though perfectly innocent, had been kept in exile for 5 years, put there by wicked machinations of another man. No process of law that I had invoked, no human help, not even the prayers that I had offered, had seemed to avail for his deliverance. One day, while sitting alone in my room, my hands busy with other things, my heart cried out, O God, stretch forth thy hand and deliver. Instantly the answer came, I have no hands but human hands. Your hand is my hand. Stretch it forth spiritually and give whatsoever you will to whomsoever you will, and I will establish it. Unquestioning, I obeyed. From that moment, without any further external help or striving, the way of his release was opened ahead of us more rapidly, almost that we could step into. Within a few days, my dear father came home a free man, justified, exonerated, both publicly and privately, beyond anything we could have asked for or thought. The case was written up by all papers in the country in which my father resided, as well as in the New York Sun. His innocence was clearly established. Once again he sat happily under the tree of his own dooryard and received congratulations. Delegation after delegation came from miles around. Friends who had known him from childhood came to assure him that his long life of uprightness had, in their minds, never been questioned. He was 75 years of age, and being an honest man, had felt the disgrace deeply. These staunch friends had been unable to help until God moved. The faith of many was renewed by his exoneration. I then wrote God's hand. Another case was that of a dear young friend who had been placed in my care. He was just entering on a life of drinking and dissipation. There were weeks of awful anxiety as I saw him drinking day by day before I reached the place where I could loose him and let him go. When I did reach the place and stood there steadfastly, in spite of appearances, it required only a few hours to see him so fully healed that although 40 years have passed, he has not yet to touch a drop of liquor or indulge in any form of dissipation since that time. The lesson, loose him and let him go, was then written. Another was a dreadful question of money supply. I had a good profession with plenty of patients paying their bills monthly, but there was also other people coming to me daily for help, people whose visible means of support were gone. These cases of lack, as they presented themselves to me, were like cases of gnawing cancer or painful rheumatism. Therefore, there must be a way out through truth, and I must find it. As always, instead of rushing to others for help in these tight places, I stayed at home within my own soul and asked God to show me the way. He did. He gave me the clear vision of himself as all sufficiency in all things, and then he said, Now prove it, so that you can be of real help to the hundreds who do not have a profession or business of which to depend. From that day on, no ministry or work of any kind was ever done for me for pay. No monthly bills were sent, no office charges made. I saw plainly that I must be working as God works, without expectation or thought of return, free gift. For more than 2 years I worked at this problem, never letting a human being know that I was trying to prove, for he had not said to me, Prove me now herewith, if I will not open the windows of heaven and pour you out a blessing, that there shall not be room enough to receive it. More than once in the ongoing, the body was faint for want of food, and yet, so sure I was of what God had shown me that day after day, I taught cheerfully and confidently those who came to my office the truth of God as a substance of all supply. And there were many in those days. At the end of 2 years of apparent failure, I suddenly felt that I could not endure the privation any longer. Again, in near desperation from deferred hope of success, I went direct to God and cried out, Why? Why this failure? You told me in the vision that I would give up the old way and trust to you alone. you would prove to me your sufficiency. Why have you failed to do it? His answer came flashing back in these words. God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. It was all the answer he came. At the moment I did not understand. I kept repeating again and again the words God said, becoming more and more emphasized, until at last they were followed by the words, "without him." The Word was not anything made that was made. That was all that I needed. I saw plainly that while I had for 2 years, hopefully and happily gone enduring hardships, believing that God would supply, I had not once spoken the word, "It is done." God is now manifested as my supply. Believe me, that day I spoke the word of my deliverance. Suffice it to say that the supply problem was ended that day for all time, and has never entered my life or mind since. This is why of the article, The Spoken Word. I would like to give one more why of miscellaneous writings. After days of excruciating pain from a badly sprained ankle, the ankle became enormously swollen, and it was impossible for me to attend to my professional work as an active medical practitioner. Ordinary affirmations of truth were entirely ineffectual, and I soon struck out for the very highest statement of truth that I could formulate. It was this: there is only God, all else is a lie. I vehemently affirmed it and steadfastly stuck to it. In 24 hours all pain and swelling, in fact the entire lie, had disappeared. Out of this experience I wrote unadulterated truth. You can see, dear Mr. Filmore, that these children born, as I said before, out of the very travail of my soul, are precious to me, and how I felt I would rather never see them again than to see them change in any way. I thank the Filmores that they have kept them just as they were written, for they are God's own burning words to anyone suffering under like conditions, however simple they may seem to one not needing them. Yours in his name, Emile, Cady, 1930. End of chapter.